Good evening. I'm Pedro Hazel Jr.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And welcome to Sportslines Plus. Tonight we'll be discussing the NCAA Tournament and opening day for the Mets and Yankees, plus Shohei Ohtani and the gambling scandal. If you like the show, press the like button, and subscribe. Now, first thing, March Madness is here. It is, finally.
Yes.
The NCAA tournament started Wednesday with 68 teams. What we're asking is what teams got in that should have gotten in, teams that did not get in that should have gotten in, and what teams should never have gotten in. Well, we already have an upset.
Yes, we have a couple of them actually.
Right, so far, Oakland in Michigan beat Kentucky 80-76. I actually saw part of that game. I know you love Kentucky and John Calipari.
Yeah,
what do you think about?
Don't know me. Calipari is one guy I do not like, and it has to do with his time when he was at the Nets because he predicted the Nets were going to win a championship in his 5 years. Guess what? He was here a year and a half. That's it. And he's gotten better. It seems like he's finally found his home in Kentucky. But this guy, for the most part, was almost like a carpetbagger for a number of years, moving from one team to the next. But I had heard that Oakland had a chance to beat Kentucky this year. They had the athletes and the talent to do it. But my colleague here actually saw some of the game. And could you tell us what you saw?
Well, I mean, Oakland was stubborn. I wisely watched the last 10 minutes of it. Oakland was stubbornly leading. They were down. They'd be like 3 points, 2 points, and then Oakland would get that shot in. And they called like maybe 5 timeouts in a period of like a minute and a half.
Wow! I mean, had Kentucky on the ropes.
Yeah. I mean, Kentucky was just 2 points, 3 points behind. But when they needed the shot, they didn't get it.
Yeah, and Kentucky for years has been a perennial super team in the tournament. We're talking at least round of 8, round of 4, and champions. So for them to be out in the first round is a major shock.
Yes, indeed.
But there are a couple of other teams that were upset too. Yale and the Ivy League schools, by the way, you never want to play these teams in the NCAA tournament. Princeton is usually great in these kind of games.
Yale beat Auburn 78-76 today. Yes. Amazing. Yeah.
And, the Colorado, for example, beat Florida in a very high-scoring game, 102-100. So we are starting to see the upsets that take place usually in the NCAA tournament. I have a feeling we're going to see a number of others coming up very shortly. But this tournament is so great because of the tournaments. One and done, and that doesn't mean the students that leave after a year. It means if you lose this game against whoever your opponent is, you're out.
The ultimate win or go home.
Absolutely. Well put.
Now, we mentioned there are teams that should have gotten in. We mentioned St. John's.
Oh, yes.
And that should have gotten in but didn't.
Let me tell you what I think of how this all went down. St. John's, by the way, had the hottest streak in the Big East Conference. They were 7-1 the last 8 games. They won 20 games this year. That's supposed to get you in the tournament. But what happened to them, there were 5 upsets on Saturday. They played on Friday, played Connecticut. And they played Connecticut very well. They only lost to them by 5 points, 95-90. But everything that could have gone wrong for St. John's did go wrong. New Mexico, the Lobos, which is Rick Pitino's son's team, Richard Pitino, they were on the bubble to get in the tournament. They had to win their last game, and they did it. And then these other 4 teams that weren't supposed to win, all 4 of them won. So St. John's was major trouble there. Had one of those teams lost, St. John's probably would have gotten in. But here's the case for St. John's. You win 7 out of 8 games, and you only lose to Connecticut, who was the national champion last year. To me, I would have put them in. What I would have not done was put in 6 Mountain West teams. 6. The Big East only had 3 teams in the tournament. That's embarrassing for the Big East. This is a conference that perennially usually has 4, 5, 6 teams in. 3 this time. And the Mountain West, which I respect them. They have come a long way. You now have to respect the way they play. But to see 6 of those teams and St. John's not in and Villanova not in really shocked me.
Villanova, that's the biggest.
Yeah, that's another. And that was a team that Jay Wright, who was a great head coach, retired from. But his teams also had won championships. They also won over 20 games, and they were denied the access. But I think the team that you really feel sorry for is the Indiana Sycamores, the Indiana State Sycamores. They were 28-6.
Oh my God!
And they did not get in the tournament. Something has to be done. I think what they need to do is get rid of the automatic bids because that's denying teams that are really good from getting in. In other words,
what are automatic bids?
Automatic bids means basically if your team wins the conference, you're automatically in. But that's a problem for me because you could have a team that wins 18, 19 games and gets in the tournament, as Michigan did. They won 19 games. They got in, but they weren't an automatic bid team. But teams like that get in the tournament over a team like St. John's, who had been trying for years. I'd say the last 5-6 years, St. John's has come this close to getting in the tournament. And I thought this time they would, going 7-0 before they lost. And Rick Pitino, who is a mastermind of head coach, his personal life aside, a great coach, denied the tournament, period. And I like what he said about the NIT. He said, we're not going to participate in that. We're concentrating on recruiting. And I think part of the reason he chose to do that was because he wanted to send a message to the NCAAs, this is unacceptable that we didn't make the tournament.
That's right. It's interesting that Rick Pitino, everywhere he goes, usually improves a franchise.
Use the program. Boston.
But everywhere,
everywhere else.
I'm talking college.
Yes.
But yeah, Boston is the only team he didn't really.
That's right. And had he gotten Tim Duncan, by the way, it might have been a different story.
That might have been a different story indeed. Yeah. What do you feel are your Final Four?
Wow. Well, I don't have the opportunity, folks, to watch a lot of these games. As my good friend Pedro knows, I have a very unique work schedule. But I will give you the teams I think will get there. I think Houston, who people have talked about for years, very talented, very good defensive team. Their problems are their turnovers and their lack of outside shooting on a consistent basis. But I will take them as one of the teams. Creighton, who has a terrific three-point shooting team, led by Doug McDermott's father, who has been there forever as a head coach. I think they'll get there. That would be number 2. And then I guess the other 2, that's a toss-up. I don't think Connecticut's going to get there. I think somebody's going to knock them out of the tournament, and it might be a surprise team that we're not thinking of. I'm going to go with Arizona. I've been hearing rumors that they're pretty good, and they might be the kind of team that could take out a Connecticut. And I guess the 4th team, if I'm going to pick a 4th one, that's going to be a little tricky. Right now, maybe I go with Kansas, mainly because of their history of being in the tournament. But that's a real shaky pick on my part, I'll be honest with you. But those are the 4 I would go with. Who would you go with?
I'm going to go with who do you think will win it all?
Wow, that's the big question of the day. I'm going to give Houston a shot. I've liked Houston for years. Kelvin Sampson has been a great coach. His teams always come up a little short, somewhat like Gonzaga. Good, but never quite good enough to win it all. But maybe this year they finally get it done.
My Final Four is Illinois, North Carolina.
Okay.
And Houston and Purdue.
Illinois has a good shot of being in the Big Four because I saw a little bit of Illinois. They are really a good team. They have a lot of energy, a lot of firepower. They're coached very well. But that's a team that might get in the 4 because they're really good, and I heard they have a fairly easy schedule to get up to that level. So they may get there. Purdue has been very good this year.
I'm going to probably go with Purdue winning it all.
Okay. That'll be interesting to see who plays, if they play each other in the finals.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting tournament.
It would be very interesting. Okay, and let me see. Duke is beating up Vermont 64-47. I think the game may be close to being over.
Yeah, Duke is one of those. Now, both of us don't like Duke. I'll just tell you that straight up. I've never been a Duke fan.
Even with Krzyzewski gone.
Even with Krzyzewski there.
Krzyzewski gone.
He was a marvelous coach beyond words. The only coach better than him, in my opinion, was John Wooden, who used to coach UCLA back in the 70s and 80s. But I've never liked Duke for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the kids get so much press and ink because of their parents and their grandparents, and they have the lineage connected with that school for years. One player I always did like was Grant Hill, and he turned out to be a great player at the NBA level. But I think Duke will get probably to the second or third round of the tournament.
That is 16?
Yeah, I think they'll get to 16, but somebody will knock them off around that point. But there's so many teams right now that could do it that it's hard for me to tell you which one.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, we're going to opening day.
Yay!
Yes. Yeah, opening day for the Mets and Yankees start next Thursday. The Mets host the Brewers in Citi Field, while the Yankees travel to Houston to face the Astros.
Wow.
Now, for the Mets, what do you think are their strong points? Now, and their weak points. Well, just want to let you know the Mets did sign J.D. Martinez for $12 million this season, just yesterday.
For the year. Let me start that way. First of all, before the Mets got J.D. Martinez, I was going to say their offense was going to be their weak point because they really didn't have another star hitter behind Pete Alonso. They had a decent lineup with Starling Marte. Let's hope he's the Starling Marte of 2022 when he was everything for the Mets. Now, if we can get McNeil hitting the way he did 2 years ago, we're talking about top hitter in the game, like a Luis Arraez hitting for average. But everything was iffy. Nimmo, 20 home runs, good defense, steals some bases. He's gotten better at that too. And Pete Alonso, by far, is the best power hitter. Yeah. Last year, even though he didn't hit well for average, he gave the Mets 46 home runs. Now, you add J.D. Martinez. He comes from the Dodgers. He had 33 home runs last year. He had in the 270s, high 270s. I've said to one of my friends who asked me about him, I said, listen, I don't care if he hits 20 home runs and he hits 270. That's better than what we had. We had Mark Vientos, and I'll tell you right now, I'm not impressed with Mark Vientos. This guy is basically what I would call a AAA player, meaning he's better than a lot of AAA players. He puts up good numbers at AAA, but when he comes up to the majors, he cannot hit for average. I know he has 5 home runs. He had one today off the Yankees, by the way. But this is a 200 hitter. Beatty is another guy who's going to give him a full shot at third base. I want to see what these guys do. But what Martinez does, he adds length to the lineup. A desperate need for the New York Mets was to have a really good first 5-6 hitters in the lineup. And now I believe they do.
Note to Steve Cohen, sign Pete Alonso. Get David Stearns off his butt and have him sign Pete Alonso as a free agent.
And I'm going to add this to it. Millions of Met fans, including myself, will want to turn away from the New York Mets unless they sign Pete Alonso. This is not only the best hitter we have, he is probably our best player. And he has another thing going for him. He's a good human being. He has everything you need for a super player to be signed for the rest of his career, and that's where he should be staying, is in New York. He loves New York. People in this town love him. Even Yankee fans don't say bad things about this guy because he's a complete player. We need him on this team. David Stearns, you better listen to us in the offseason. You better have this guy signed. You can talk about 2025 all you want. There's been rumor they're going to get Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, etc. Fine. Go ahead and do that. But you better bring Pete Alonso back to my team.
That's right. I agree. Now, since now we've gone through the offense, let's see the pitching. And now you mentioned the pitching has been surprisingly good.
Now, we know it's exhibition season, and I understand, yeah, they have a great ERA. Yes, it's under 3. But the thing is, they're missing their ace, Kodai Senga.
Yes.
But
what do you think? How do you think the Mets are going to do?
Now, here's what I think is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
All the pitchers on this staff are going to step up a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Quintana, who we lost half the season with him, he's going to be the de facto ace to start the season. He's a very dependable, solid left-handed pitcher. And then the big surprise that I'm going to tell you, I think Tyler McGill is going to shock us this season.
Interesting.
Tyler McGill, let me tell you why I say that. The last part of the season, the last month or two, he started working on a split finger and a sweeper. Now, we know with him, he's had great games, and he's filled in for Jacob deGrom, de facto ace opening day, Washington Nationals. Remember how well he pitched. But this guy lives and dies with his fastball and slider. But now he's added some pitches to that.
Oh.
And he's worked on a curveball, too. And he still throws 96 miles an hour. So he'll be the number 5 starter, but he might be the sneaky number 5. I've been impressed with Adrian Hauser, who I didn't think a lot about, but they got him from the Brewers. He's a control pitcher, but he throws 93, 94. He's got a sneaky kind of Oral Hershiser fastball that doesn't look like a strike and catches the outside corner. He's very smart. He may surprise us and win a lot more games than we think. Sean Manaea, the guy they got from the Giants, he's pitching really well. This could be another surprise. And Severino, the guy they got from the Yankees, this is the one the Yankees may be the most sorry they gave up. Because he is throwing as well as he used to. We're talking 98 miles an hour with a filthy slider. And if these guys pitch the way I think they're going to, the New York Mets are going to win at least 10 more games because they have Edwin Diaz back, who was arguably the best closer in the game in 2022. The Mets are coming back, guys.
All right.
You heard it first here.
That's right. Now for the Yankees, what do you think of their strong points?
Well, with the Yankees, I think certainly Judge is their strength.
Aaron Judge, yeah.
He is, without question, a phenomenal hitter. We know that. Juan Soto, that's the question now. Is Juan Soto going to be the hitter he was with the Nationals when he was really a great hitter? Or is he going to be more like the Juan Soto with the Padres, 27, 28 home runs with a pretty good average, 270? They need Juan Soto to be 290, 30 home runs. He and Aaron Judge together have to do the job. Rizzo has been injured a lot the last 3 years. He's had concussion issues. He's had a lot of health issues. He comes back and LeMahieu's back, then the Yankees are going to be pretty good. And watch out for that shortstop, Anthony Volpe. He may take off this year. He didn't hit well for average last year. He had 209, but he gave them 20 home runs. And he's another guy in that lineup who will do better now. He's in his second year. He's probably more relaxed, not under as much pressure in New York. And he may not ever be what Derek Jeter was, but he'll be, let's say, close to him if he keeps developing. Now, their pitching is a little suspect, and the reason is,
of course, Derek Cole.
Because Derek Cole is out for 1 to 2 months. So what they will need Carlos Rodon to be the Carlos Rodon he was with the Giants. He had an absolutely awful year last year. 3-8 with a 6.85 ERA. That's as bad as you're going to get. But I've heard good reports on him. He actually pitched one game I saw exhibition, 5 innings, no runs, no hits. So if he's back to his old ways, that will be huge for the Yankees if he can pitch like that. But they need everybody to step up. Clark Schmidt, who was their number 5 guy, pitched pretty well. They need him to be really good. But the Yankees have a pretty good staff if all those guys pitch well. But they have to get Garrett Cole back within the next 2 months.
We mentioned about the Mets winning at least 10 or 12 more games.
I think so.
How do you think they'll finish in the division? You've got the Braves, you've got the Braves, the Phillies, and of course the Marlins and the Nationals.
Right. I'd like to believe the Mets are going to finish 3rd, and I'll tell you why. Remember, when you lose your closer, once the season starts, you're done for the season.
Of course.
And I knew that when they lost this guy.
Oh, yeah.
So we're looking at probably 10 wins.
87,
88
86,
wins,
87,
like
87 wins.
Now, if they get some surprises in their lineup, meaning let's say maybe Alvarez hits 30 home runs, Maybe JD Martinez gives us 25. And let's say we get the healthy Marte from 2 years ago. And let's get Jeff McNeil's average better than 270. Last year, he had 270. He struggled to get there.
Yeah.
The year before, he had 322 and led the National League in hitting.
Okay.
If we get that Jeff McNeil back, and we have the normal performances of Nimmo and Alonso, and also Alvarez, then the Mets are going to take off. And I think the pitching, which had been maligned, the pitchers they picked up, because they were signed for a year, nobody really thinks they can do the job. But if Severino, particularly him, and Minaya and Quintana all pitch well, we're looking at a team that's probably going to win about 85 to 88 games.
Okay.
I think they'll finish just a little bit ahead of the Marlins.
Now, the Yankees, how do you think they'll finish? How do you think they'll finish? Now, they're in a very competitive division. You've got the Orioles, and they got a free agent acquisition, and they built up their farm system.
Yes, they have.
You've got the Orioles. You've got the Rays, who are always, getting the best out of their prospects.
They absolutely do.
You've got the Jays, and you've got the Red Sox. So
that is an extremely tough division. And this year, I think it's the Orioles division to lose. For the first time, I will say that.
Wow.
Corbin
I know
Burns,
Jason would be very happy about that.
Yes, Jason, that's a friend of ours. Corbin Burns, who they got in a trade, was an outstanding move. He's going to be a free agent after this year. But at least the Orioles can say for 1 year, they may have better pitching than the Yankees. Corbin Burns, we've seen him in the National League. This is an unbelievable pitcher with a great cutter who throws 94, locates everything he throws. He is the ace. They finally got their ace. They have a lot of good young pitchers. They have a kid named Grayson Rodriguez, who I really like. And they've got John Means, the left-hander, who's been injured for almost 2 years. And he used to be their ace, and he's back. So this is a very strong team. And then look at the prospects this team has. Now, they just sent Jackson Holliday down today. By the way, if you don't know who he is the son of Matt Holliday, who was a great player in his day. So we're looking at the number one prospect in baseball, and they have about 5 or 6 prospects that are almost can't miss.
Yeah.
They have a kid named Colton Cowser, another outfielder they have, and their lineup is just filthy good. So I think the Yankees maybe will finish second behind them. But if the Rays, and remember the Rays won 99 games last year, this is a team that keeps reinventing themselves.
Oh, yes.
Injury after injury after injury, and they still figure it out. Now, they have a pitcher on their staff who they got from the Phillies a couple of years ago. His name is Zach Eflin. A lot of people don't know who he is. Well, guess what? He was 16-8 for the Rays last year. He was their ace. They don't even have their ace. Their ace is a left-hander named Shane McClanahan. They are missing pieces. But you know one thing about the Rays, they will figure out a way to contend.
Yes, they will.
And you can't count on the Blue Jays either, because they have a very strong rotation also. And if they can get Vlad Guerrero hitting the way he used to hit 2 years ago, they could be dangerous too. Everybody in that division has a chance except maybe the Red Sox. And if the Red Sox get Jordan Montgomery, then they will be contending as well.
Yeah. Going back to the Mets National League East, you've got the Braves. I figured the Braves are going to be the Braves they were last year.
The Braves are phenomenal. They're like a machine, that team. They really are. I mean, they have Acuna, who is arguably maybe one of the best players in the game. Austin Riley, who is a freak at third base, hits for power, for average. And they have a lineup that 1 through 7 or 8 is as dangerous as it gets in the National League. And I would say it rivals the Dodgers lineup. It's really good. They have pitching, but I'm not sure if their starting pitching is as strong as people think it is. Max Fried, who's going to be a free agent, the left-hander who is supposed to be their ace, gets injured a lot. He hasn't really totally fulfilled what he should have. Kyle Wright, who's no longer on that team, was traded to Kansas City. He won 20 games for that team. So they're taking some chances. Morton is an amazing pitcher. He's over 40 years old. He's still counted on to win about 13, 14 games. And Chris Sale, my God, if Chris Sale is the Chris Sale he was in Boston, He's their fourth starter. That's how good their rotation is. So, and he's 34 years old, and he's still throwing 97, 98. And the guy they have now, I think, is going to wind up being their ace is Spencer Strider.
Ooh.
Oh, my God. What an arm this guy has. 97, 98 miles an hour with a slider, and he's now added a curveball and a changeup. Oh, my God. How good is that stuff potentially going to be?
Yes.
So I right now would have to go with them, but the Phillies are a very, very good team, and they have beaten them in the playoffs when it really matters.
Mm-hmm.
And they just re-signed our guy. We used to have Zach Wheeler. Who the New York Mets.
One of the biggest mistakes they made in
thanks
recent
to
years.
Brody Van Wagner, if you remember that name, our GM, who said, and I quote, he's only a second-half pitcher.
Hey.
Now, I'll take that second half on my team for the whole season.
Damn right.
And the Phillies have had him and Aaron Nola, and they've signed them both back. They still have Taijuan Walker they got also from the New York Mets, who does a pretty good job as their number 4 starter. So they are a very good, very solid team, and they can still hit. Schwarber doesn't hit for average, but he'll give you 40 home runs. Real Muto is still the best catcher overall in the game, although Adley Rutschman of the Orioles is really right on his heels now. But they're a very good team. I think I have to go with the Braves, but not as much as you would think. I would say maybe they win by 5-6 games in the division. I think the Phillies are really going to push.
You figure like 100 games?
Yeah. I think the Phillies are going to get up maybe win 90, 95 games.
Ooh.
The New York Mets, I think, will be in the somewhere.
You said
in the
85 to 88.
Yeah, I think the big reason is because they have their closer back.
Yes.
Edwin Diaz, 2 years ago, was by no question the best closer in the game. And having him back gives the Mets a level of confidence they haven't had for a while. They have a better bullpen this year than they had before.
Yeah.
Adam Ottavino was re-signed. He was a pretty good closer for them, but he's like the second guy. They picked up Jake Diekman, a left-hander who still throws in the 90s. He's a veteran left-hander. And they got a guy from Japan whose control isn't that good, but he has great stuff. They got him from the Orioles. And they're going to have a better bullpen than people think.
Yeah.
So, but the Mets are going to win a lot of games, close games, because their offense is not phenomenal, but it's good enough to win.
Yeah. Anyway, here we were hit with a bombshell here. A huge scandal involving pitcher Shohei Ohtani. His lawyers say that the superstar has been the victim of massive theft. His lawyers are accusing his now former interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, of taking funds from Ohtani to use for illegal gambling. ESPN reported that $4.5 million in wire transfers were sent from Ohtani's bank account to a California bookmaker who is under federal investigation. Mizuhara, who is Ohtani's longtime interpreter, has been fired by the Dodgers.
Yes, he has.
Now, big thing is, do you think it's amazing that he got Ohtani? A lot of people will say, did Ohtani get involved with the gambling? I think it was his agent. It was the interpreter doing it. But
first of all, let's hope he didn't get involved.
Let's really hope so.
Because Shohei Ohtani is one of the faces of baseball. You can argue Acuna and Betts and Freeman and Riley and guys like that. They are also faces of the game. He is right now, and Mike Trout, but he is the biggest face of the game right now. Not only based on his contract, but his abilities to pitch and to hit. He's not pitching this year because he had injuries, but he is a phenomenal home run hitter.
Oh, yeah.
And the Dodgers right now are looked at as a team that can win it all because of their lineup and their pitching.
Oh,
but I hope, I'm saying this as a fan, I hope Shohei Ohtani is not involved with this at all.
I hope so, too.
And I'm glad the Dodger organization elected to fire his interpreter because you had to get that stain off your back altogether.
Yeah, it's just amazing that a person you trust so much is doing all this to you.
That's the scary part. These two were very close friends because this man was his interpreter. So imagine how much burden he had on him that was removed when this guy spoke for him. So that's issue number one. Issue 2 is, luckily for him, he didn't bet on baseball, but he bet on other sports. If he had bet on baseball, that would have been a real bombshell.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we hope that Ohtani is innocent of all these charges.
I hope so, too.
And losing $4.5 million out of your bank account is a sin, a serious crime. So we need to find out if he's involved, that is Ohtani, in any of this at all, and how much this is going to affect the Los Angeles Dodgers as a team. That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Can the Dodgers withstand this scandal going on while they're trying to win a World Series?
I mean, it was just, when I heard about it, it was just blew my mind.
Yeah, it blew my mind too, because
I'm sure that of many baseball fans.
Oh, yeah. Everything we've ever heard about Shohei Ohtani has always been good. It's always been how charitable he is, how great he is as a human being, how much he wanted to win. So, yes, he did leave the Los Angeles Angels to come here. But he is the most probably loved player in baseball right now. And to see him under this kind of scrutiny with the media, and Los Angeles is the number 2 market in media, so they're going to follow this story to the hilt. And I want to see now how the Dodgers as a team handle this, because this team pretty much had a clear walk to the World Series, maybe outside of the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that team well, and the lineup they have with Betts and Freeman and Smith and on and on. But now they're under a lot of scrutiny now, not only from the media, but a lot of fans now want to see what dirt comes out of this.
Yes.
And I hope for the Dodgers it's not any more than what we're hearing. But I have a feeling they're going to dig a little deeper and find a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the sad part for the Dodgers and for Ohtani going forward.
Indeed, indeed. Well, for Steve Ferguson, this is Pedro Hazel Jr. saying thanks for joining us, and see you 2 weekends from now. If you like what you see, press the like button and subscribe. Have a good night, everyone, and enjoy the madness.
Have a good night, guys. Go Mets! I think that was a better show than